problem is with podcasts, it's too much talking. Sometimes I get annoyed with podcasts because I feel like people ramble.
All right, we are back. This is Creativity is the Cure. I am your host, Malcolm Moore. I'm here today with my good friend, the one and only Brock Morse. How you doing, Brock?
I'm doing pretty darn good, Malcolm. How are you?
I'm great. Well, the way we know each other, we were just discussing it, is we've both worked with Tom Caltabiano on what used to be Mr. Clown and is now a show on PBS called Hello, Hi, How Are You?
Is that what it's called now?
I believe so.
It's a good title.
I think the first time I met you, I was just saying, during the pandemic, I don't know if I met you in person or your puppet character also named Broccoli, right?
Yeah, we probably met. I met you very, very briefly after meeting Tom. A friend of ours, Alex Lehman, had made a film starring Ray Romano and called Paddleton.
Oh, I love Paddleton.
Did you see Paddleton?
I watched it twice. I love it. I like how there's a movie within a movie, the martial arts movie.
Beautiful, yeah, and a beautiful, beautiful movie. And if Ray hadn't decided to make that film,
yeah,
I wouldn't have met Tom. It's kind of cool.
And he did that with the Duplass brothers?
Yeah, and so Tom was there on set doing hanging out while they shot, and got to know Alex, and then Alex was like, "Why don't you play with puppets in your living room? I know another guy that does that." And
it's almost like there's a shadow government in Los Angeles of a puppet community. I don't know if people are comfortable talking about it, but I seem to be stitching it together.
The organization. Yeah, you don't want to talk about it.
We're going to bring it above ground.
Yeah. So I met Tom right away. I mean, he introduced me. I think it was right after they got back from making that film, and it was right after the whole pandemic thing had started.
Right.
So we were masked up for the first, in the first moment there of like...
I think maybe you and I did at least, 20 to 30 live Instagram shows.
Yeah, there was a bunch of those, which was a great way to reach kids that were stuck at home.
Yeah.
And getting to play with the character. And those puppets, were not, they were just made. Didn't Christian make them? He made all the fruits and veggies.
Did you make Brock?
No, Christian made them
Christian,
all.
He made Colonel Corn?
I think he did all the fruits and veggies, and they were just made...
Mr. Mouse, too, who's now been renamed.
Meep. Mr. Meep.
But Russ Walco made Mr. Clown, right?
Yeah. And...
But yeah, Christian is an incredible puppet builder.
Yeah, I haven't figured out how to do the foam stuff like that yet. He did a really nice sculpt on, red, the orange, and he's just got those cute little dimples. And we're talking about Christian
Anderson, I believe. Yeah, Mr. Pandersonian.
We're talking about Christian Anderson.
How about Sonny the Sun? Did you build that, or do you just...
I did. That was my first attempt.
Oh, Sonny is
doing
great.
What Christian does. He looks all right from a distance, but he puppeteers horribly. He's got no... He's a terrible puppet. He needs to be rebuilt by one of the experts.
He looks good though.
But he looks pretty good. I mean, he captured what I was going for, but I don't really know how to. So I'm a novice when it comes to building puppets, but I've learned a whole lot in the last few years.
We are here in your compound in Altadena, California, and one of the ways I got to know you is we filmed some episodes that are now part of the PBS show. I think we did the Christmas and Halloween episodes here, right? You built Mr. Clown's house.
Yeah, we had it with another art department friend of ours, Teo Gardino. He's a great set builder, and we designed Mr. Clown's house so that it looks like, a children's cardboard house, but we didn't want it to be actually made out of cardboard and have it just fall apart after using it once or twice. So we wanted something that had a wooden structure that would look exactly the same. And
right.
So it was kind of a little bit of a complex, like 3 or 4 day build.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of mileage out of that.
How did you build the snowscape that was in the Christmas episode when I think Meep was skiing, right?
Oh, well, we Teo, once again, he works on a lot of commercials and started just keeping all of this snow, right? And
Yeah.
so I have this entire garage loft that's just stuffed with bags and bags.
What is snow made out of these days?
It's
Not
like quilt-
asbestos anymore.
No, it's kind of like just quilt batting, just white stuffing.
Yeah.
And so I've got rolls and rolls of it just crushed up there. And so all we did was build 3 platforms,
Right.
6 feet off the ground.
And for everybody out there that doesn't know, this is so the puppeteers can kind of stand up while they're holding the puppet above their head, right?
And then you put snow on top of that platform, and you can poke your hand up through it and operate, and it looks like you're on the ground. And then the house had to be elevated also 6 feet, so that which is normally how puppeteering is ideally done, where you're able to stand or maybe sit on a stool.
We had a lot of puppeteers, including people like me that are not puppeteers. I remember we had what did we have? We had the spider, we had reindeer, we had
it was like 8 or 9 people.
It was like and we were all using both hands.
Yeah, that's right. Which also isn't ideal.
Thank God we had Victor here. He's like, Malcolm, your puppet is diagonal right now.
Right. Yeah. So you don't want to do more than one character, ideally, at a time. It's hard to, because when the other one comes to life, the other one dies inevitably. It just sits there and stares for a moment. It's almost impossible not to do that.
Yeah, it's tough. And then when I've been on the set of shows with Victor and you look in the monitor and the puppet is moving the opposite direction than your hand is, there's no way. I could never adapt like you guys.
Right. Well, you can flip the monitor,
I know. But they don't think that's traditional, right?
Yeah, it all depends.
With what we're talking about, you building Mr. Clown's house, I was lucky enough to go on the set with you guys of Hello, Hi, How Are You, which is out in Burbank now. I love how I think you built the set that is now like a talk show, also out of cardboard. And I think one of the cool things about this is not only for you guys, it's cheaper, but I've worked with kids so long, when they look at these sets, the house, the talk show thing, they're like, that looks like something I drew or something I built. So I think there's a connection the kids are making. Was that part of the idea?
Yeah, that was definitely part of the idea. At first, we thought, well, it could be funny if the inside of the house was really fancy. Obviously, it's much bigger, but so that's funny unto itself. But then we thought, well, it still should look like it's a cardboard house, though.
Yeah.
Still have the brown walls, and then we can do whatever you might do to it.
It's almost like a fort that a kid would make using their imagination, right?
Yeah. And so we took that whole approach with his desk and everything.
I love the desk when they go down to have their secret conversations. They have these meetings under the desk, but, just like Oscar the Grouch's garbage can, you go in this tiny thing and then it's 10 times the size of...
Did we ever get to see down in Oscar's domain? I feel like we went down there, but I don't remember.
I didn't. I grew up in Rochester, New York, and they have like a replica of Sesame Street at this kid's museum.
Did they ever show like what his world was like down there?
Yes, and I think maybe it was in Elmo-Palooza.
Oh.
I think, or the Big Bird movie. I do remember going down there. I mean, for me, I grew up watching Sesame Street and Muppet Show in the 70s. But my kids that are in their 20s, they watch the 90s stuff.
Right.
So I was watching all that too.
Right. I love when Oscar would walk with just the trash can with his green feet sticking out. That's classic.
Best episode is when he and Johnny Cash are singing Nasty Dan.
Yes. Yeah.
What is it like, Ben, transferring from working here in your backyard to a lot of this stuff and just making separate videos to actually having the studio in Burbank and really consolidating and getting even more focused to make, what do you guys make, 20-minute episodes?
Yeah, I think they're 10 half-hour episodes, but some of that content was, some previously shot content.
Like the tricycle episode.
Yeah. But I mean, it's been... That's kind of the dream, is to get into a real studio space with air conditioning and higher ceilings, and enough space to spread out in. And all my limited puppet experience of the last few years has mostly been, Tom's living room. And we've shot a lot of content there and streaming. And then we did some stuff here in my backyard in the garage, and we turned my garage into a set, and we have another show going on out there now. And but it's very restricting. You're working off a rollerboard off the floor the whole time, and
Right.
you're not getting to stand, and it's very ambitious. Just doing stuff with puppets, you think, oh, this is kind of simple, but especially if you've not been around it or thought about how it's done,
Right.
people are usually pretty surprised about how much goes into it. 'Cause, the rehearsal wasn't all that.
Well, and I think you guys have such an eclectic team. I mean, you've got someone like Victor that has been on a lot of these big shows we're talking about, but then
he's a
you have
godsend.
Tom, who has written well-known shows, so he's good at that, and you're a builder. So that was my next question. How did you learn to build all these things?
I'm just making it up as I go, really. I built a lot of,
Out of necessity, just figuring it out.
Used to do a lot of parties, built a lot of sets for like immersive environments with my friend Teo. When we were younger, Teo started throwing these big Halloween parties with these mazes in his backyard that would go on he'd start building in June.
That is so cool.
And so I would come over and start, create like, okay, this room's going to be an old Western mine shaft. And so I'd put up all these bones and cobwebs and the lighting. And then, then I move on to the next environment. And that was kind of, it was a creative outlet when I first moved to LA because, I did some film work. But when I first moved here, it's hard.
So you did have some base knowledge from working on film work, like how people do stuff.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I had theater training, and so I took some set building classes and stuff like that.
So that plus being intuitive and just learning on the spot.
I just love doing stuff with my hands. I'd much rather be working with outside building stuff than having to be in front of a computer. But
same.
So
when you're working on the set with Nee and Zach and Victor and Tom, I think one of the funniest things is when you guys asked me to get some drums and cymbals and we were trying to figure out how to set them up so they looked right to a drummer like me, but also make it possible that Victor and someone assisting could actually play the drums and looks right. And it certainly doesn't hurt that Victor's a great percussionist because that's what he went to college for.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if Tom could be doing what he's doing without Victor's involvement has elevated that content so much.
I guess a good question would be, how has Victor helped people like you and Tom and Nee get better at puppetry? Can you think of a time where something wasn't working and Victor's like, oh, no, let's...
Well, I mean, when Victor's there, Tom sort of defers. He becomes the de facto director. He's experienced. So whenever Victor's got a puppet in his arm and he's standing there, he's pretty much everyone's all ears. And I mean, it's consistently every time.
Let's talk about your show, the Dweebo Show. I just watched a great episode called Fish and Bird, and you and I are both big fans of Tom Waits, so I was delighted to see you picked that song. I think in some ways, like Hello, Hi, How Are You? I loved how you did the waves. I love how you had like a blurry background. Dweebo was front and center. And then the story that you were singing that was being told was told by, it was like a cardboard bird and a cardboard whale. Now that doesn't sound impressive, but it actually worked. And it made me think of like early Monty Python with Terry Gilliam, how he would do the animation. And there's different levels and different depths. So tell us what's the Dweebo Show about? How did that get started, and who do you do that with?
Well, the Dweebo Show is a kind of a throwback to things that we grew up with, sort of in the vein of, old Sesame Street episodes and Mr. Rogers and things that are a little bit slower paced and aren't afraid to touch upon, some sensitive subjects and taking time to discuss them. Down the road, we want to create a place where we can do that same kind of stuff and also just not annoy the parents. Right. Where the parents...
That's huge.
Yeah, where they can sit there and kind of go, oh, I feel good about my kid watching Dweebo. He's not obnoxious. He's not...
I mean, there's a lot of new shows like Bluey that I know the parents enjoy because it's really funny.
Yeah, it's very
But on the flip side, no offense, but I remember when I took my older son, Django, he's 29 now, to see the first Pokemon movie. Right. Okay, I had never heard of this. He's like, Dad, can we see Pokemon? And then I get there. There is no dialogue at all. There's this little yellow guy named Pikachu, and I swear to God, the whole movie, the only thing I could hear was, Pika. My son, Django, was thrilled, but I was like, I do not know what's going on. So it was obviously made for just the kids.
Yeah.
And I think with your Dweebo Show, not only you hitting the marks with that, but I didn't think about the Mr. Rogers thing, that it's okay to be slow-paced.
I don't know if it is in this market yet. I mean, we just launched the channel last year, and we're close to monetization. We're not on YouTube Kids yet, And
By the way, the full title is The Dweebo Show, and if you just search in YouTube, you can find it.
yeah, Dweebo or just the Dweebo Show. We actually have 5 different shows that we're playing with that the character does. So he does the Dweebo Show, which is more of a guest-based format. Somebody comes on to share something. He has a friend to visit, but then we do 4 other shows where it's Dweebo Draws, where he's doing some art of some kind, and then Dweebo Reads.
So it sounds like a show that
sings.
the kids could watch and relate to and see themselves.
Yeah, and we've got like different categories of interest as well.
Can you tell me a few of the categories?
Well, like I said, there's Dweebo Sings, Dweebo Reads, Dweebo Draws, Dweebo Plays. Some kids don't really even know how to engage their imagination.
Especially after the pandemic. I found as a teacher when kids came back, they didn't know how to interact, how to make friends. So this is probably really important what you're doing. Yeah,
or even to know how to entertain yourself. I mean, I spent a lot of time when I was a kid playing with action figures and playing out little stories and things. And I probably had cartoons that helped me with those, and some of the books we were reading and stuff. And
remember the commercials when we were younger? It would be like Evel Knievel. Okay, it was this great thing where he was an action figure, you put on a motorcycle, and then you wind it up. But in the commercial, right, they would have this whole landscape of like rivers and mountains. I can imagine you being one of those guys.
Well, we would go out. We had a dirt pile. that Dad would bring a dump truck full of dirt at the beginning of every summer, and we would turn that. By the end of the summer, the dirt pile would be pretty much flattened out. But you
could probably go do that for the whole day, and your parents would be like, "When the street lights
we could hang out there
back.
all day." My mom could see us from the kitchen, and we would. It was kind of like that, where we'd set up roads and turn it into a volcano.
It's exciting.
We'd spend whole summers on the dirt pile. But it looks very much like those
we might have to title this podcast "Summers on the Dirt Pile."
Some very fond memories.
Now, you and I have endlessly talked about Tom Waits. How did you discover the music of Tom Waits? What are some of your favorite songs? And most importantly, did you say you saw him live? And if the answer is yes, I'm really jealous.
I've seen him numerous times live.
That's on my bucket list.
Yeah, you got to do that. The first time I saw him was in Eugene, and we were kind of that first mezzanine and off to the far left, and I thought, these aren't going to be great seats. And it turned out to be they were great seats, but better than that, at the beginning of the show, just as things are starting off, the door swings open right next to us, and I just see this silhouette.
Oh, man.
And it's him, and he's just like about 15 feet from us. He entered from the side door in the balcony.
Wow.
And then he worked his way to the stage, throwing confetti on everybody. And
what, do you remember what album, what tour?
It was Mule Variations.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, it was like 99 or 2000.
Nice. And that's pretty rare to be able to see him because he doesn't tour a lot.
Yeah.
So how did you originally discover his music?
High school. There was a buddy of mine, Boaz, who was telling me about this guy. He's like, yeah, he's got this voice of, just like, man. And I think it was my dad's album or something. And I thought, I kind of just have to hear this. I want to know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And I went and I said, what's his name? It's Tom what? Tom what? And I went down to Happy Trails, and they had all these used CDs. And there was 5 or 6 Tom Waits albums.
He's very prolific. There's a lot of albums.
Yeah, yeah. And I grabbed the one that just had the coolest cover, and it was Small Change, and it was him like, sitting there in the dressing room of the strip club, I think. And I thought, and it just happened to be the exact album that Boaz was talking about.
Oh, wow.
And, that iconic...
And it was interesting if you really check out his career to see how he goes from like a smooth voiced jazz singer into this now gravelly dude that sounds like he gets his drums from a junkyard.
Right, right. He's got a song for every mood.
Yeah.
I think, for every occasion.
I first heard of him, there was this great show back in the day when MTV actually had music. We were talking about this earlier when there's only 4 channels, and suddenly the 5th channel, UHF, came out, right? And we all saw MTV. But I remember I would stay up late, I think this is in the later 80s, to watch 120 Minutes. And that would be all the underground music.
Right.
And one night, Peter Gabriel was the host, and he goes, I want to play a song from this album called Bone Machine. And that blew my mind. I went right out and got it. turns out 2 favorite musicians were on there. Les Claypool from Primus played bass.
Right.
And Biehn, this great drummer, who also ended up playing with Primus later and played with Guns N' Roses. It was just nuts. And from what I had read, the drum sound on there, being a drummer myself, I was like, what the hell is going on? Turns out he built a crucifix out of metal parts, and he played it with human bones. As soon as I heard that, I was like, I am in.
What?
Yeah. And I have seen a little bit of video of him. I don't know if it's like a basement and there's like this revolving metal thing and he's like hitting it with all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
I mean, I like the old stuff, but I think I gravitate more to when he started experimenting, like using marimba for bass.
Yeah.
And recording the drums in weird ways and singing through a megaphone.
Again, it kind of depends. I listen to Tom all the time still.
Yeah.
And I listen to, like the One from the Heart soundtrack a lot when I'm just driving around L.A. at night.
Is that the one that they...
With Crystal Gale.
But they, there was one that he recorded, I think it was in a restaurant or a coffee shop. Oh. And then you could hear all the people in the background. I get it mixed up. Some of the older ones like Heart Attack and Biehn and stuff like that. That
might have been the song that album inspired, which was the Talk to Strangers song. Yeah. I think it's on Foreign Affairs.
So depending on your mood is what era you listen to.
Yeah, I think so. And I remember the first time I listened to that album, Stranger or Small Change, I listened to it all the way through and I was like, I just wasted my money. And I was sitting there, I was like, this guy, what? Well, I don't get it, but I couldn't. And then I immediately played it again and listened to the whole thing a second time through. Yeah. And then I was like, oh,
yeah, you got to work for it. The best music, you got to.
It was like I wasn't there yet. I was like senior in high school, I think. Yeah. And my mom walked in. I was listening to it in the living room. And she walks in. She's like, what is this? Who is this? This person can't sing at all. Yeah.
You're like, he sounds like Cookie Monster,
She
Mom.
still
it's
feels
okay.
that way, right? So, and then I was hooked. I mean, it was a pretty quick and deep dive after that.
I think I'm like you too, though, depending on the mood. This morning I woke up and listened to, I was drinking espresso, Tangled Till They're Sore. I love the piano.
Yeah.
And Clap Hands in Singapore, like all those are just so atmospheric.
Yeah. I like the Foreign Affairs album a lot. Is one that
I don't know that one as well. Is that earlier or later? Or?
It's later 70s. I think it came out right after.
Have you heard? I really got into the Blind Boys of Alabama at one point, and I got to see them live. He did a song with them, singing together like a gospel song.
Oh, really?
And those guys together were just magical.
Yeah, and that was the same time that he did Dracula had just come out. So I
kind of mixed feelings on that movie.
Yeah, but his
performance is my favorite film director is Terry Gilliam, and he often grabs Tom for great parts like The Devil
and Fisher King.
Oh man, that's a masterpiece. And for me,
I think he has an uncredited cameo in that.
Yeah, he's in in Grand Central. And you know who else is in the background of that movie is Tom Caltabiano.
Is he really?
Yeah, he tells the story on the earlier podcast episode.
Really?
And the true story of how he meets Robin Williams, my favorite comedian, I can't really say on this interview, but you make sure you ask Tom.
Okay. I shall.
All right, so time travel. Here we go. Let's go way back when Brock Morse was not 6'7". What is your first creative memory?
I think drawing dinosaurs in particular was my big thing. When I first realized I could draw, there was this kid Jimmy Johnson who rode our school bus, and he was a few years older, and he would draw dinosaurs on the school bus in the morning. And I sat behind him intentionally and would watch him. And then one of these days he taught me kind of what his little technique was. Yeah. And I don't know if I was probably already doodling before that, but that was the first lesson that I remember that kind of unleashed me, where from that moment on, like as soon as I got to school that day, I started drawing dinosaurs on things, and then it was like nonstop.
What was your favorite dinosaur to draw?
Well, I mean, probably a T-Rex. It was just I like to draw the teeth.
Yes.
And the big brow, the big mean brow, and then the teeth.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the go-to. And
so you would just find blank paper and start drawing?
Were you doing pencil? I would draw my homework. I like to draw in pen.
Okay.
I don't know why. It
Ballpoint, felt tip.
Yeah, with ballpoint was, yeah. And like when I got older, I still like to draw like in Sharpies. There's something about...
There's so many different kinds, so many different colors. I like Sharpies so much that one time my wife got me a keychain that had little baby ones with every color.
Really?
Like at home. You've actually unleashed this disturbing thing about me. I have the really big Sharpie. I have the regular ones. Right. I have the colors. You're right. They're so fun.
They didn't have all those different ones back then.
Got to be careful when you're drawing on thin paper.
No, I know. And but there's something about committing to pen.
Yeah.
That I always kind of liked.
That's actually a great insight. If you make a mistake, you got to work with it.
Yeah, you should work with it. And if it was a piece of art I was more serious about, then I would draw in pencil.
And these were just for yourself. They weren't to put on like your parents' fridge or to hand in an art class.
I mean, mom started becoming. They've always been very, very supportive. So they put up a lot of artwork over the years.
There was a gallery.
Yeah, kind of. But I guess I would draw on homework. I had this teacher that was a little bit of a cartoonist, and my fifth grade teacher, and he wanted to encourage me, so he would give me extra credit. He said, but you have to finish the assignment. He said, look, Brock, you do like 20% of the assignment, and then you cover the rest of the page in cartoons. He's like, they're awesome. I'm enjoying the cartoons, but I'll tell you what, I'll give you extra credit, but you have to finish the assignment. So
that's a good deal.
He was a great teacher.
That's a cool teacher.
Yeah. John Wagner.
And I'm sorry, where did you grow up? Where was this?
Corvallis, Oregon.
Oregon.
Yeah. Went to where Oregon State University. I did not go to the university, but that's
what it's known for.
Nice little college town and good place to grow up. But we were a couple miles out of town, surrounded by farmland, and had a lot of
dirt piles,
and yeah. All the acres, all the neighbors had a couple of acres each, so we were very spaced out.
Yeah.
And big fields and dirt bikes and adventures to be had. And so there was a lot of, it was the cartooning up until sixth grade. I thought I was just going to be a cartoonist. I thought I'm going to make my own Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah. And
I had all these different ideas and characters that I started coming up with. And
what was the show that you were inspired by? Cartoon?
Well, I mean, my favorites at the time growing up was G.I. Joe. But that was in addition
Super
to
Joe Commander.
G.I. Joe was but I had all the, I was really into the toys.
Yeah.
But, the whole Disney afternoon thing.
Yeah.
The animation, those characters, like DuckTales and Rescue Rangers and stuff. So I would sit after school when those shows were on, and I would sometimes record them so that I could pause them and learn how to draw them. And so I learned a lot from watching those cartoons once I started to get more serious about the art.
Right.
And then once I got to sixth grade, my dad bought a video camera. We went to Hawaii, I think, on vacation, and wound up dropping the video camera like at the airport when we arrived. So we have no video of that trip. But he replaced the video camera when we got home, and that began I was like, oh, then I could start making. We started making movies, doing spoofs of Rambo and stuff like that. And so and then by the time I got to eighth grade, I had decided, because movie making and cartooning I realized, what Jim Henson was doing was kind of a merger of those two things. He was sort of making live action cartoons.
Yeah.
And so I had decided by the ripe old age of 12 that I was gonna work for Jim Henson someday, and then that's the year that he passed away. And I remember staying, Mom let me stay home from school that week or that day.
Yeah,
I wore like a black armband.
It was a dark day for all of us.
Yeah, but it was crazy because I of course grew up with him, but it just was so unexpected. And here I had just decided, like, oh, that's what I'm going to do.
You know what's too bad is I've listened to so many interviews about well-known puppeteers like Kevin Clash or someone like that wrote to Jim when they were very young, through 10 through 15. And a lot of times he'd invite them down to like a puppet training. So,
oh, wow.
That's really too bad that you couldn't have done that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up.
But you've ended up working with some astounding puppeteers.
It's been incredible through Tom. I mean, really, like I said, if I hadn't, you meet one person and it opens so many doors.
Absolutely.
And not really in a direction I expected to go necessarily. I mean, you have an interest, but I thought maybe the puppet stuff will be more of like a hobby.
Yeah.
But then I met someone that actually had something going on for real. And so since then we've started Dweebo. And so we got a whole set of a cave and with tree roots.
And you film almost all that here?
Well, we do most of it. We're starting to do some stuff in the field. We just shot like a Renaissance Fair episode that we're Dweebo, a day at the Ren Fair. It's pretty exciting. And,
I can't wait to see that one.
So we're going to have, getting him out into the world. People like to see him in the world.
Yeah.
But we've got this great set, which is his magic cave. It's a fun place to bring guests. So you should be a guest on the Dweebo Show.
You know
give
how to
us
find
a drumming lesson.
I'm in. Just come out to the desert and find me. What about your parents? Were they creative?
They would both say that they're not, but I would say that they both are, but just in different ways. Dad is
non-traditional.
Yeah, not in like Dad is very creative because he creates a lot, but he wouldn't put himself in the realm of coming up with characters and puppets and voices.
What does he create?
He worked in construction for years, so he's a problem solver.
Yeah.
And over time they would, my grandpa, he and his brothers started what became the second largest construction company in Oregon.
Wow.
And so my dad and his brother and cousins were second generation of helping that business grow. And so they were inventing a lot of things like crusher plants and how to make things work. And he's really great at sort of just building things and executing them and fabricating,
sounds
machinery.
A lot like you, Brock.
Yeah. And his work ethic is sort of unmatched. I mean, I know guys in their 40s that work around my dad still, and they're just like, can barely keep up with him. And he's 80 now. So he's slowed down a little bit just these last 2 years, but he's doing really well. And now he's gotten into woodworking and lots of that kind of stuff.
Does he ever help you with the puppet show?
No, I guess not directly, but he would. I did a film before I moved down here. I did a feature, and he helped with that a lot. He helped build things. He was making welding swords for me. He was, we built a whole set that's very similar to the cave out here, only it was an entire contained cave for this character that is actually who Dweebo is based on. There's this little old man kind of Yoda character in the storyline that the hero comes across, and it's this medieval adventure film.
A wise old sage.
Yeah, exactly. And he's living in the cool little hovel in the woods, and so we built that entire thing, and he helped me build that. I mean, they continue to just be. They couldn't be more supportive, and then my mom is sort of a perfectionist when it comes to her artistry,
and details.
Especially very detail oriented, and that comes across in her. When she decorates for Christmas, and she would decorate for all the holidays when we were growing up and stuff. But she's kind of like an art director, and so I very much have been doing that my whole adult life. Decorating for the holidays, and I realized I get that from my mom. It's like, no, that's not good enough. You got to kind of move it over. So maybe there's a little bit of...
You're like an event planner.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. So, and so I don't know. And Dad, being around him growing up, it's, you just sort of get familiar with tools and getting your hands dirty and just getting things done, how much you can get done in a day, which is a lot.
I think now that I know, I see a lot of both of them in you.
Yeah, I think so.
Have you ever solved a personal challenge in your life with a creative part of your brain?
Sorry, I was using a different part of my brain. So the question is...
Have you ever solved a serious challenge in your life by using that improvisational creative part of your brain?
Well, improv is kind of the scariest part about performing for me. And I just got back into acting a few years ago.
Right.
Basically right when I met Tom. Maybe that previous year I was starting to, and prior to that I was just doing the whole filmmaker thing.
Right.
Out of high school.
Behind the camera.
Yeah. I did theater training and all that through junior high and high school, and thought, I can go off and be an actor. I was doing it constantly, and we were making movies on the weekends. But I was like, I don't know if I want to do the struggling actor bit. I thought maybe I'll go and be a filmmaker and be a struggling filmmaker instead. But at least I can learn all these other skills.
Yeah.
And then maybe go back to acting later.
Right.
So anyway, did a film up in Oregon called West Ender, and that was like a big, very ambitious, right out of film school, like, I'm going to make a medieval epic.
Start simple.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, don't shoot with animals and kids. And I was like, well, I'm definitely going to put animals and kids in there. And just trying to do all these intentionally ambitious things. And it wound up, taking about 3 years to make the whole thing. And I stayed away from performing for a long time, and then finally about 5 years ago, I sort of hit a wall with constantly sitting behind a computer.
Yeah.
You're rewriting scripts, and I really get into the script writing process and even making pitch decks and all that, but only to a degree.
Right.
Eventually you're like, I want to stop doing the meetings and I want to stop doing the rewrites and I want to get out there in the trenches and start doing stuff. And which was, again, the same time that I started doing things with Tom. But
well, it sounds like you did solve your issue. You wanted to be an actor. That was a little challenging, like with anybody that comes out here. And then you just happen to naturally figure out every other aspect of the business that eventually leads you back, right?
Well, I didn't really want to be an actor. It just sort of made sense after being down here for 15, 20 years.
Right.
It made sense to go back to that.
Right.
And so I've done it the last few years, and it's been pretty busy. And of course, I do a lot of improv weekly. That actually, one of the first things I did when I went back to acting was I took a class at Groundlings.
I did that as well. Did you do the level 1?
Yeah, I think I did the 1 and then the intermediate. And then I was like, are they going to make me take intermediate again? But it was, but that was a good experience because it was like, oh, okay. And then at the same time, I started volunteering with the Board Act Players, which is a acting class for folks with special needs. We do in Studio City. We have actually 4 classes a week. We do 2 on Zoom and 2 in person. So I've been volunteering there for almost 7 years, and that was basically my stepping back into acting as well, because I thought, well, this will be a nice soft landing. I grew up with, my sister has Down syndrome, and so I grew up with her friends.
What's your sister's name again?
Joy, and she's the oldest of us. She lives up in Oregon near my folks, and she joins us now for our Sunday Zoom classes, which is awesome. We've been doing the Zooms since COVID. But anyway, the first thing I did was joined that class as well. I thought this will be a nice soft landing. You go up there and you really can't do wrong in that class unless you're like offensive. So that has really warmed me up to being back on a stage.
Well, don't you think also, I mean, I don't know if you know this about me, but I was a behaviorist for about 20 years. So the special needs community is really close to my heart. And when you're doing the arts with them, compared to a lot of other groups of people, there's a sincerity there that you can't find anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that must be rewarding and challenging if you're doing improv groups with them, right?
Yeah, but that's exactly why
I
do it.
Yeah.
You want to get out of yourself.
Yeah.
as much as sometimes you have a job where you're there for the kids. I mean, yeah, you get your paycheck, but really you're there for them. And, as an actor, as a performer, we spend a lot of time in this industry. I'm sitting here at a computer, I'm by myself, or even if you got a corporate job, it's not about this specific group. Mm-hmm. And in this case, there are little moments and breakthroughs, every week that are just so magical.
Yeah, and monumental.
Yeah, and when you see new students come in that aren't sure if they want to be there, and it might take them, it might happen on the first class, or it might take 4 or 5 weeks before they just have this little nudge, and they have this breakthrough where they're like projecting more or whatever. And it's just like everybody's so supportive. The whole class is just like, wow. And man, it just keeps you coming back.
I actually currently share a classroom with my good friend Matt Ritchie, and he's our improv teacher. So what we do is I'll teach music for 30 minutes, and then he'll do improv. And I just sit back and watch, and the kids have so much fun when he just gives them a scenario, and they can't wait to get up there and to see like the support of the other kids.
Right.
It can be pretty wild.
Yeah. We've had Kevin Nealon has been in.
Oh, he's wonderful.
In lately, his wife Susan Yeagley. She's one of our volunteers. She's absolutely fantastic. She's been with us about a year. Kevin's come in several times, and so he's kind of a regular at this point. But it's pretty awesome to have the.
He's such a funny guy.
Yeah, and for me to sit back there and go, wow, like watching Kevin Nealon on stage with our students, it's kind of surreal to watch because we're doing like sketch comedy.
I would love to see that. I know Tom invited my wife Christine and I to go see him live once, and he just I had known who he is and seen him on Saturday Night Live, but nothing is like his live comedy.
I haven't seen that yet.
No. Yeah, he's incredible. Tell me a little bit about M.O.B. Productions. What do you guys do?
Well, M.O.B. Productions is I've just always had that production name
for everything you do,
pretty much since high school, and I don't know why I've changed it or why I haven't changed it, but it's we make films, but we're I'm kind of, I guess you'd say I've put them on the shelf for the time being. Stepped into acting for a while and working on the puppet stuff. I'm not really actively trying to get one of the features made right now.
Right.
But
so everything outside of the acting that you do kind of falls under that moniker.
Yeah, exactly.
What does the M.O.B. stand for?
Mind your own business.
Oh, that's pretty harsh.
No, it doesn't. We never decided. We never decided what it was going to stand for. Back in the day, it was Morse and my buddy Brassfield, and we hadn't decided what the O was going to be. So I kept it all these years because I made all these business cards and I didn't want to have to change.
Saving money,
and and then every time you get a different film project going, you start a new LLC.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I don't want to use M.O.B. for those because then it's sort of used
up. It's a kid's show.
Yeah.
All right, now we got to ask you this. There's a rumor floating around that you are the Brawny Man. Is this true?
That I want to say it's a rumor, but I wouldn't. That wouldn't be entirely honest. So,
is it something that you're not allowed to talk about?
No, I can talk about it.
Okay.
It's just sort of a funny thing, but yes, I am the Brawny Man. The iconic Brawny Man now has a face, and it's this one. For all you listening,
wait a minute. So, will it be coming to a supermarket soon? Because part of me wanted to go to Vons on the way over and get some paper towel and then get a photo op. But we're not quite there yet, right?
We're the commercials. I shot some commercials that will come out in about 3 weeks.
It's real.
It's real.
I told my wife, and she got really excited, and I'm so glad to find out this is truth.
It is true. I'll show you some photos. But yeah, they've been keeping me busy.
How did it happen? How did you get connected with Brawny?
Well, I have a commercial agent, and so that's the last few years. My like I said, most of the acting work has been commercial stuff. It keeps me pretty busy between auditions and when you actually book something. And so whatever, I kind of worked my way up to it, I guess. And so the casting happened pretty fast, as they often do on commercials. Yeah. And it was like, oh, okay. And it was non-union, which was surprising.
Well, I hear from my casting director friends that's most of the business these days.
Yeah. But they were like, hey, it's the iconic Brawny Man. And I was like, okay. And I think it was already straight to callback because they'd already seen a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in that first batch because I went in and there was just a few guys. And they were all there. It was their second time around. And it was like the day before Thanksgiving. And
what's an audition like for something like that?
I don't know, they had me come in.
Like, what's my motivation? Is that what you asked them?
Well, in the commercial, they summoned him, kind of.
A shofar?
No spoilers. And so he shows up.
Shofar, maybe Ricola, maybe a little bit like that.
And so he take your empty paper towel tube.
Yes. Oh, that would be much more appropriate.
Yeah. Brawny, and he shows up, and so he shows up at like the house party, after, in the aftermath of the house party, and so they had me just sit down on this couch, and what's cool in the spots is they shot me on green screen, so I'm like 40% bigger. So I'm already 6'7", so in these spots,
you're like 6'8".
I'm like 6'8".
And will you eventually get to meet like the Marlboro Man? Is there like a gathering every year?
No, but I did recently meet Flo.
You did?
I did meet Flo.
Progressive Flo?
Progressive Flo. She's wonderful.
See, man, it's already happening.
Yeah. It's already.
All the pieces are coming together.
Yeah. Someday I hope to meet Kool-Aid.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And maybe have a cage match with Mr. Clean.
Remember these words.
Yeah.
Prophesy.
Yeah. So that is a fun gig. We just did they run one product of the year. So I got to go and go up on stage and accept an award.
And did I see that this was mentioned in the New York Times? I looked online and there was like a black and white photo.
Yeah, we did an ad with an influencer.
A meet and greet.
This gal it was a good idea. It was a good marketing idea because she broke up with her boyfriend very public. It was this public thing, and basically Brawny stepped in and sort of took advantage of this internet, gossip.
Yeah,
they stayed on top, and that's what the article was.
You're just riding the wave.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this is kind of smart. How brands are, if they stay on top of internet gossip, they can, direct some traffic towards their product.
And will there be like paper towel conventions eventually where you'll sign autographs?
If only. I would hope so.
You've had the privilege of working with some well-known actors like Morgan Freeman and Michael Biehn. Is there anything as an actor that you've learned from watching or working with them?
So much of their work is done before they arrive.
That's a great point.
Is what you realize. That, like, they can step in and be completely themselves and be relaxed, and they aren't, Morgan Freeman's not cramming lines between takes.
Right.
He's not over at the monitor like maybe he had a script handy, but I sure never saw one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he was there for a whole week. And
what was the name of the film? I remember I watched it.
The Ritual Killer.
The Ritual Killer.
Yeah,
right.
By my friend George Gallo directed that, and who I met through Tom Caltabiano as well. He lives next door. And that was a wonderful summer. Got to go to Mississippi and got to watch George this whole summer make this great little thriller. And Cole is great in it, Cole Hauser. But Morgan was there for that whole first week. And he and George were friends, so they had, I think this was their fifth film together. And,
wow.
And fourth or fifth. And So being able to sort of be right there as these, friendly conversations were going on. And I was just sitting here thinking like, man, he's just goes out there. He's like got all this dialogue and he's like 80 years old or whatever he was at the time. And he'd just walk out there and do it.
Right.
So there's this kind of, and less is more.
Yeah.
I'm definitely learning a lot, even with these little, some of the commercial-y stuff you do, which is very, spokesman-y stuff is very different than when you get to do with theatrical work. But
this stuff, is it more about being subtle?
Yeah, and sometimes it's okay to be over the top because
depending on
they're leaning into the goofy and the comedy and the cheesy,
right?
And I get cast for that sometimes in these commercials. But again, it's like it's real easy to do too much, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to pull myself
dial back a little bit.
Yeah, and
what did you work on with Michael Biehn?
Oh, I produced a film that that Michael directed. It's called The Victim, and we'd had a mutual friend had a script that Michael was interested in, and we had an investor friend that wanted to pay for it, and so we spent a tumultuous, crazy summer. Actually, it was really just a couple of weeks up in Topanga Canyon shooting, Michael's vision for this kind of a little thriller movie,
right?
And he's sort of a wild, unhinged guy.
And I'm sorry, what was the title of that one?
The Victim.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Intriguing.
Yeah.
Now, you have 2 dogs. What are their names?
Oh, I have
And
Shorty.
what kind of dogs are they?
Well, I got Short Round here. I think he's a golden retriever mixed with a corgi, I think. But he was a street stray. He just showed up here like 3 weeks after I moved into this house.
Really?
Yeah. It was like a little angel. And now, as you can see, he only has one eye. But he's, I don't think he really misses it. And then I got Bruce over here. And Bruce is an Aussie Shepherd.
I'm laughing because they're both asleep, not responding their names.
Bruce. Yeah, no, he's and he's only, I guess he'll be 3 next month.
Where'd you get him?
Oh, I got him from a breeder friend down in San Diego. A buddy of mine passed away a couple years ago, and my friend Eric, he'd been talking about getting a dog for like a few years. I'm like, you should get one. And then he passed quite unexpectedly, and then about 5 days later, I was like, I think I better get another dog. I tried naming him Eric at first. That was just weird. It didn't work out.
But somehow Bruce did.
So we went with Bruce. I wanted a name that I could kind of bark.
Yeah.
Bruce. There we go. Bruce, come here.
All right, so here's a crazy question. Now that Bruce is awake, can dogs be creative?
Can dogs be creative? I mean, I wouldn't want to say no to that.
Well, think about when they want something, when they have an agenda, the different ways they will try to get your attention. That could be creative, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What is one of the strangest things your dogs have ever done that caught you off guard?
Well, there was this amazing moment with Indiana, who was my older dog who'd passed a few years ago. And so he had a big black coat. He was similar to Bruce. I don't know what he was mixed with. Like, he's almost 100 pounds, though. But he looked similar. Big black and tan. Might have been mixed with a Rottweiler, and I'm out walking with Shorty, and Shorty, when he was younger, used to occasionally get real barky. He was never really aggressive, but he'd run up to someone, maybe another dog, and he wouldn't get, but within a few feet, and he'd just start.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and we're off leash down in this, wilderness area. So I come rushing over, and Indy had cancer at this point, so he couldn't move very fast and all that. And he's kind of walking behind me, and I'm running up. Shorty's barking at this German Shepherd, kind of a puppy, but it was a big German Shepherd at this point. And this looked like a teenager, and his girlfriend had this the dog. And the dog is like pulling and was almost pulled to the point where the dog is like snapping in Shorty's face. And I was starting to, run. I was like 20 feet away. And then all of a sudden I'm 10 feet away and I'm almost there to grab him. And because their faces are just inches apart. Right. And all of a sudden Indy he comes running full speed past me.
Wow.
Even though he had this, pelvic, his cancer was bone cancer. And it was like, and he sprinted past me and he just body slams Shorty.
Wow.
Not the German Shepherd, but he just slams into him. And Shorty just rolled like 2.5 times on he just, and Indy just lets out this huge, slams him. And the German Shepherd just stopped barking, just stood there like dumbfounded, like, what just happened? And those people were holding him like, your dog just policed that situation.
It was like a wrestling move.
It was so cool, though. It was like he saw that Shorty was about to get his ass kicked, and he mustered the the
like
agility.
Serve and protect.
Yeah, it was so cool. And it was one of those nights where at that moment, the sunset was like, where the clouds are covering the entire sky. Yeah. It was all orange and purple.
Very cinematic.
It was just like, what is going on right now? It was a magical little dog moment.
That was definitely a creative dog.
I would think so. That was creative problem solving right there.
All right, I have a few quotes that I would like you to respond to. Back to Tom Waits. He once said, I always liked the idea that America is a big facade. We are all insects crawling across the shiny hood of a Cadillac. We're all looking at the wrapping, but we won't tear the wrapping to see what lies beneath.
Well, I would agree with that, although personally, I like to tear the wrapping. Been doing a lot of tearing the last few years. But I do agree. Most people are, we just spend our days crawling back and forth across that hood.
Not being aware of what's underneath.
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman once said, insanity is coasting through life in a miserable existence when you have a caged lion locked inside and the key to release it.
Oh, man, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Now say it like Morgan Freeman.
No, you're the one that does voices.
As you were reading that, I was just picturing caged lion. Yeah.
Like a nature documentary.
Yeah, that's a good quote. Yeah, that is a miserable existence, isn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of like you were saying if you're working at a computer. I used to do the same thing. I used to make websites, and I'm just sitting there gaining weight, being miserable and alone.
I feel like there's a lot more creative people in our society than are allowed to show.
I think everybody is creative.
I think so. I used to say, like when we first got into filmmaking, I used to say to a buddy, man, I think everybody's got at least one good film in them,
Yeah.
And his response, because he wanted to be a big filmmaker, was like, that's a cop-out. And like, well, not really. I mean, everybody's probably got more than one good one in them.
Yeah.
Certainly we all have good stories to tell that are compelling human stories. It just depends on how you tell it.
Yeah.
Everybody's got some portion of their life or something they've seen or something that's worth sharing.
You're making me think of John Lennon. Everybody's got something to hide except me and my monkey.
Just keep your monkey hidden, okay?
One more quote. This is by Jim Carrey.
Never heard of him.
Painting is just another way of creating. It happened. It was inspired by broken hearts, and I've had a few. It was inspired by that, by the need to express something immediately and not wait for a green light committee or a script to be perfect or any of that stuff. Here's an idea. I don't even know what it means yet. I'm going to paint it. I'm going to sculpt it. And then it will tell me what it means a year from now. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, I love that.
I don't know if you've seen, there was a 6-minute documentary on how he had kind of put acting aside for a bit and started drawing and painting.
No, I do remember hearing him talk about his painting and seeing some of it. So maybe I saw that piece.
Yeah, really beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's why I find myself sometimes it feels like it's falling into the category of procrastination because I would, like I said earlier, I'd rather be doing things, with my hands,
right?
Because it's even if it's laborious and not so much creative,
It's tactile.
it's even if I got to blow the driveway off with with a blower,
yeah.
It's like I'd sometimes rather just go do something that has a little bit of that immediate gratification.
I think there's a lot of filmmakers now, like Ridley Scott, when he did the Prometheus movie, they're building real sets again.
Right.
And also we were just talking about The Dark Crystal, The Age of Resistance. I remember when I asked Victor Yerrid about working on there, I was like, how much of that is CGI? He goes, most of it is real. They just tweaked it.
Yeah.
And so, there's something exciting about, probably for you as an actor too, actually being able to put your hand on an object instead of doing like a all green screen movie.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, like, you do what you got to do. But as I'm sure almost any actor that finds out they have to work on a green screen almost the whole time is going to go.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The people that do that, I cannot imagine their imagination to be able to pull that off.
Yeah.
However, I do like the swing back to.
Yeah, and I look forward to having those opportunities. It's amazing. But well,
you're doing it with Dweebo, right? You're just making stuff and you're discovering where you're going as you're doing it. Would that be correct?
Yeah, there's really a lot of experimentation at this early stage because it's just a lot of things I want to do with the character and with the show, and it's kind of just we've just created a platform to try different things.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of different ideas for guests and things that we can make it look like the puppet's doing this and make him look like he's, he's going to have to build legs if he's going to, and it just sort of pushes the world that he's in. I don't want it to just be in the cave either, getting him out into the world.
Now, you worked on the Mr. Clown video, the tricycle one, right? Mm-hmm. What blew me away about that video is, and I don't know how you guys did it, but when he was riding the tricycle, oh my God, it was so realistic and so good. And I grew up watching the original Muppet movie. Everybody's blown away when they're all riding bikes.
Right.
But this was different. This is a whole different thing. So I imagine when you're making Dweebo, you're experimenting like that too.
Yeah.
Is it top secret, or can you tell me how Mr. Clown rode the bicycle?
No, I mean, it was really just a little bit of trial and error of like building. It was really just some rods that were duct taped together.
Yeah.
And we just had to get the length, experiment with the length of things. And I think I had to make the ankles flex a little bit.
Yeah. And then knees editing, I'm sure, helped.
Yeah. And then exactly. If you stay on him for a second or two longer,
it doesn't look right.
And I think we were just pulling him with
it was so real, though.
wire.
At that time, I was teaching younger kids from like 4 to 10, and they were freaked out. Like when he crashes into the car and then the window goes up. I mean, they were there with you guys. It was so realistic.
How is this puppet steering a 3-wheeler?
A whole video just to teach kids to wear a helmet and why.
Yeah, it was a whirlwind of a...
that whole thing when he looks in the mirror and he's like, I look good. All the kids would just burst out laughing.
Yeah, we shot that. I think there was basically 3 of us for almost that whole...
Was that here?
It was a bunch of it was here, and it was me and Nee and Tom. And then we shot a bunch out on the cul-de-sac outside Rick's house.
Oh, okay. Right.
And it was like 100 degrees, and we all got sunburned. Like, well, you can't shoot out in the sun all day without, putting up some shade. That'd be a good idea.
What's been the most challenging scene that you've filmed with Dweebo? I mean, I know you do trial and error, but what is the one looking back where you're like, wow, that was really tricky to figure out?
Well, I would say this doing stuff in the field is, one thing I realized in doing this Ren Fair episode, we went and spent actually 2 different days at the Cronenberg Ren Fair.
Okay.
And out in Corona, which is coming up here at the end of May is when it starts again. And a lot of fun. So we got friends out there that, and it's a permanent installation, which is really fun. So it's, looks very authentic.
Right.
And, there's a lot of people, and I put on knee pads and was trying to walk around with a puppet, like walking on my knees.
At least you had the knee pads.
And like interacting with people and stuff. And then, we're walking alongside the Baron, who's, one of the main people of the fair. And we were interviewing. He took us up to watch the joust and everything.
It's so great that you did live
seats.
interviews with people. I love that.
Yeah. And so we're walking and the interview that we did before this is great. But all the stuff that we're walking with him, and I thought this is going to be so cool to walk and talk.
Yeah.
Well, because I'm like 6'7". So the puppet, there's no way for me to I have to be laying on the ground on my back if the puppet is to be his proper height.
Like one of those little rollers with the seat.
Well, not like at max.
Yeah.
And even then, actually, he's probably too tall because he was as tall as the Baron.
Yeah.
And so one thing I realized is like we're shooting all this footage out there and he's interacting with all these people. And we really couldn't use any of it because it's like, why is Dweebo all of a sudden, 5.5 feet tall?
Yeah, the scale of puppeteering is tough.
Yeah, he needs to be. We'd never established how tall he is, but he should be about the height of a 5 or a 6-year-old. He's like the height of a kid.
So you couldn't use any of it.
So
we're going to go back.
No, but we just cut around that stuff because everything else we got was great. But you just sort of. And that like physically was just the most grueling because I'm like literally like trying to take these big steps.
Yeah, you're not in the studio. You're out in the field.
Yeah, and just dirty all day. But it was awesome. So satisfying, and to get when you're doing things live with a crowd or even on a Zoom.
Yeah.
You can gauge things in a way that...
I think that's one of the first things that Jim Henson and Jane figured out when they got into the medium of TV and using that square about being like far away and close up and really using that square. Because before then, what was it, Punch and Junie? You just have like a little stage and this one guy comes out and beats the hell out of the other one.
Right.
But really working all the angles. I'm thinking of that classic Phenomena, where he has the two singers that are right in front of the camera, but he keeps going way, way, way back. And they kind of make a joke out of it.
Right.
I'm glad you brought up the thing with size and height and perspective because I got to go see Victor work on Crank Anchors. And he is slightly shorter than you. And I noticed that he showed me has special shoes made that make him taller. So when he's with puppeteers, they can be at the same height. So that's, not only using Apple boxes, even with regular movies, but trying to make things work for people that are different heights.
Yeah. And if the character isn't the right height, you notice it right away.
Right.
And we had all those shots in there for a while in one of the early cuts. And it was like, why does this? Until it was someone else that finally had to say something like, "Hey, why is he taller in these shots?" And I thought nobody's going to notice, but it's like that's so not cool of me to, because of course they're going to notice. Kids notice everything. Kids especially.
They're brutal. That's the best and the worst thing about it.
I mean, like, why is he 5.5 feet tall? Why is he taller all of a sudden?
Yeah,
and it just breaks the illusion.
When I worked with little kids, right when I started, they're just so brutally honest. Like, if they come up to you and give you a hug and they say, I love you, it's like 1,000% true. But they also can be like, you look terrible today. Did you get enough sleep last night?
Yeah.
And one of the best things when I started is this little kindergarten girl who's like 4 years old. She like motioned for me to lean down and she grabs my beard and she goes, "Oh, Mr. Malcolm, I'm going to take you to the salon and we're going to get rid of all these white hairs." And I really love the brutal honesty of kids.
Yeah.
All right. Before we go, I want to help you promote what you're working on. So first of all, we've got Hello, Hi, How Are You? The show that you worked on with Tom Caltabiano. All you need to do is go to pbs.org and you can watch those episodes. So first of all, how about Dweebo, your show? What is the best way to watch that and where should people go?
Just YouTube at the moment, or you could find us at dweeboshow.com.
And how do we spell Dweebo?
Dweebo. Dweebo.
And there is an Instagram for Dweebo.
And there's an Instagram as well, which it has a link to the YouTube channel. And the Instagram is Dweebo Show.
And then your acting one with all those fantastic photos by your buddy. What's his name again?
Oh, Eric Curtis. Yeah.
Great photographer.
Yeah. Yeah, he was amazing. You know, I think if you just put in
Brock Morse.
Brockmorse, or you can put in the real Brock Morse, because I was hacked at some point. So,
What are you working on next, other than Dweebo? Anything coming up? Oh, Brawny.
I got the Brawny Show coming up. I got this. I do have a feature that I've been wanting to do, and found some people that I think are interested in doing it. So I'm working on a rewrite of that to hand it off to them in the next couple weeks. So
wow.
We'll see.
Doing a lot of writing too. That's cool.
Yeah. And then we're writing a new show for the Born to Act players as well. So got another show for them coming up.
All right. Thanks, Brock. See you next time.
All right. Did you want a hot beverage?
Hey, this is Malcolm Moore. I've just got to add one more thing. You know, I'm a huge Jim Henson Company Muppet fan, and I realized after listening to this really fun interview with my friend Brock Morse, I realized that I had incorrectly told Brock which Henson film that we, the viewers, got to go into Oscar the Grouch's domain, which is, you've got to go through his garbage can and down into Grouchland. So I was incorrect when I said that was in the movie Elmo-Palooza. It's actually in a really cool, fun movie called Elmo in Grouchland. And what happens, I won't spoil too much, but at one point, Telly Monster is roller skating out of control. He comes by accidentally and swipes Elmo's blanket, leading to a chase around Sesame Street. The blanket ends up falling into the hands of Oscar the Grouch, who sneezes on it and drops it in his trash can. Unwilling to wait for Oscar to return, Elmo dives into the bottom of the trash can where he finds his blanket snagged on a door. Now, I'm not going to tell you what happens after that because I want you to check out Elmo in Grouchland. Enjoy, everybody. This is Malcolm Moore. Over, under, out.